Welcome back to Negotiation Tactics. Last week I started to share the importance of careful listening. And this week I'd like to say that I can actually summarize what you learn in this course by stressing don't reacting to nasty tactics, becoming the best possible listener and gatherer of information you can be, and then learning how to do creative problem solving in a collaborative win-win way. That's basically the model that you're learning in this course. And because effective listening and effective information gathering is so critical to the best of negotiation tactics, this week I'm going to spend time introducing the levels of paraphrasing and talking a bit more about active listening. Let me turn to my PowerPoint for this week. The best negotiators listen actively. Now, if I was to contrast this with listen passively, you can imagine yourself when you pretend to listen. You're passive, you're just there, maybe nodding your head, doing an occasional hum, but you're not really present and attentive to the person speaking, and you're certainly not trying to remember and capture everything they're saying. It's very different when we give someone our full attention and our intent is to understand, accurately hear what is most important to them. Some people in my past have been deeply shocked and gratified because they have experienced careful listening for the first time. Now, in communications, we are, an interdisciplinary program that has benefited from the discipline of communication studies, as well as labor studies, as well as international relations, law, and ADR. Many different disciplines have contributed to negotiation, conflict resolution, and peace building. Communications is just one. And here is one of the models that benefits our discipline. Levels of paraphrasing starts with what I introduced last week as the surface level, the obvious level, the explicit level. Underneath that is probably the most important level in my experience. But before I go to the next level, I want to reiterate that you are reflectively listening and reflecting back to the speaker the main points you have heard. Now, they may correct you or tell you that there's more. And if they do, they are the expert. We never argue with the person speaking. We may be right in what we've heard and what they've said, but that's not the point. The point is that we are trying to encourage them to share more information, so when they correct and when they elaborate, we follow the speaker's lead. The next level is the level of emotions. And sadly, in many mediations, for example, particularly the ones I have heard about in the United States, this level is uncomfortable for many negotiators and mediators, and in particular, male negotiators and mediators. But in my experience, I had introduced this earlier as a potent response to nasty tactics. That's not all that this does. And I also introduced this in a previous lecture as one of my natural strengths. So I have a lot of experience seeing the impact of sincere, empathetic listening. In my experience, what it does is open up communication so it goes much deeper. There's much more information sharing than there would have been without sincere, empathetic listening. And this isn't just what you might imagine. I was just having a discussion in my undergraduate classroom about how I interviewed on my cable show yesterday a professor of child and adolescent development who said that generally males are discouraged from feeling sad, hurt, I would add afraid, vulnerable, while girls and women are discouraged from feeling and expressing anger. Sincere empathetic listening responds to all of these emotions, accepts all of these emotions, encourages all of these emotions. It also must be sincere. It cannot be done in a manipulative way. And the only way you can do this sincerely is to be doing win-win integrative bargaining. You know, win-lose, it would be manipulative and insincere, and I don't think it would work the same way. Now, it's certainly not sympathy. We're not looking down on the people that we are listening to. We are engaging with them heart to heart as equals. And I would like to ask you what I often ask my students: what actually motivates you to feel compassion for another human being? You know, some people say, I shared research yesterday, that fathers' active involvement in their children's life leads to more compassionate, empathetic human beings. Others would say that life tragedy, hardship, difficulties, challenges opens the heart to feeling compassion. I think this is a very personal question that needs to be explored within. Especially when we're talking about feeling compassion for strangers, someone who is not a friend, somebody, and in most negotiations that at least people study negotiation tactics to be effective in, we are relating, engaging with strangers. So exploring when you feel sincere empathy for another and from another, those are important practices in our field. Now, in my experience of 15 years of, no, actually it's almost 20 years of teaching undergraduate and graduate students these skills in the state of California, Californians, born and raised Californians, seem to be some of the most empathetic people I've met in the United States, and it would be interesting to have a discussion about how others experience Californians, especially if you were born and raised elsewhere, and also ask Californians if they see themselves and experience other Californians this way. Now, some of the responses when I've asked these questions before is that eye contact is a way of feeling and giving empathy, attentive eye contact, kind eye contact. Now, this is not true for all cultures. I had a young student who was born and raised in India years ago who was not comfortable making eye contact with her elders, with people that she was raised to give respect to. So we have to be careful that we understand the cultural dynamics here as well. Nonverbals, you know, head nodding, giving the person accepting, what I'll call accepting space, may appear empathetic. It varies from people to people. So I look forward to hearing your experiences this week and seeing your discussions of how this works for you and with the people within your life. It is one of the most important skills for diffusing anger. And next week, I'm going to be presenting my model for escalating angry, destructive conflict, because you need to understand how to diffuse and meet anger. And anger may not be you know, a nasty tactic. It might be the other person feeling angry. They're not using it to manipulate you in any way. So it's important, if you can do it, to learn to do it. And I would encourage you all to try. It's going to work for you in some situations in your life. As I mentioned earlier, if done well, it encourages a deep trust building and important information sharing. I've never seen it fail, unless the person involved in the negotiation is not there in good faith, is attempting to bully or manipulate. I think this is enough for this week. I've given you once again a lot of information and will encourage you to practice these skills in real-world situations and then discuss your experience, debrief your experience, evaluate your experience with your group members, your classmates, and with me. Next week, I will be giving you even more information, and I don't expect you to tackle it all every week. Pick what really resonates for you, what intrigues you, what you think you might benefit from developing and growing in your life. That's good enough for this class for sure. Have a great week.